Good evening, friends. Let's begin after the manner of friends, please, with a moment of shared silence. Thank you for being here. I'm Brian Garment, head of school, and it's my honor to welcome you to the Rubenstein Lecture. We are very fortunate tonight to have some incredible artists, really some of the DC legends present with us this evening. I hope you had an opportunity to see the great art that's in the hallway. And I was talking with Lou before the show here just a few minutes ago, and he said this is a long time dream where he wanted to get friends and family together in a very loving manner here at Sidwell Friends. Well, you've succeeded, Lou, and look at this great crowd. So let's, such a tribute to you. In 1981, Lee Rubenstein, together with his children, Beth, class of 1977, Barton, class of 1981, and Amy, class of 1984, established an endowed fund to honor the memory of Lee's late wife, Daryl. Daryl was a curator at the Smithsonian Institution, an art historian, and a major supporter of the arts. Daryl was also an active member of the Sidwell Friends community. She taught speech in the middle school and organized photography competitions and exhibitions of photos and prints. Since the establishment of this program in Daryl's memory, over 30 nationally recognized artists have visited the school to exhibit their work and spend time with students and faculty. And I know that the students very much enjoyed the presentation today. I heard so from parents, and if they told parents that they liked the show, they really did, Lou. So you know that's the truth. I want to take a moment to recognize members of the Rubenstein family who are here with us this evening. Lou, of course, or Lee, I'm sorry, Lou and Lee, and and Barton, of course, who is an artist in his own right. If you haven't seen the sculpture on the waterfront at Georgetown, you need to go see it. The Mother Earth Project, really an amazing piece and a great addition to the city. So it's great for you to carry on Daryl's legacy and to have you with us here this evening to be part of this. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Don and Ann Brown, who are not with us today, but they are responsible for providing much of their collection for the show. And also for the wonderful Sam Gilliam work you see on display here this evening. So if we could have in absentia, a round of applause for Dawn and Anne. It's really a remarkable gift that when you walk through the gallery during the day, you see students looking at the art, you see faculty coming back to look at the art. It's really illuminated our lives over the last several weeks. Also want to thank Aaron Brophy, who has done a remarkable job of curating both shows, and you'll hear him speaking with Lou here this evening. So Aaron, let's please thank him and recognize him for his work. And above all, of course, I want to thank Lou for being here this evening. You can applaud for Lou again. It does seem to be a love affair here tonight. And I'd also like to thank Lou and Di for sharing Will with us, who is a graduate of Sidwell Friends and who recently finished his doctorate at Yale in philosophy. He wrote, please give him a round of applause. The topic was on the institutional imagination of Jürgen Habermas. So you can come and recite from that after the evening is finished. Great to have you back. It's good to see you, and congratulations. We're very proud of you too. So. And speaking about, yep, go ahead, keep going. We all know each other. In speaking about his work, Lou once explained, I'm interested in nature. I'm interested in creating a perfect world that would be nice to be in. I consider myself a spiritual person because I feel that the healthiness of the spirit is essential to mankind. Now more than ever, we need visionaries who, like Lou, recognize that our physical and spiritual health is inextricably linked to the health of our planet. We need intellectuals who, like Lou, inculcate a deep respect for the environment in their audience. We need artists who, like Lou, help us to imagine a more beautiful place than the one we are inhabiting right now. Lou's work enables us to wander and wonder, fully engages our imagination, reminds us about the cycles that define our lives, and he nourishes our spirit all the while. We are fortunate to have him with us this evening. And we are fortunate to have one of DC's most talented poets and intellects to introduce Lou. You know it's going to be a great night when you have to take some time to introduce the person who is introducing the guest artist. Ethelbert Miller is a writer, poet, intellectual, literary activist, cultural worker, and dedicated citizen of the district. A former Fulbright Senior Fellow, he founded and chaired the DC Humanities Council, served on the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, and he is an emeritus trustee for the Penn Faulkner Foundation. For 40 years, Ethelbert oversaw Howard University's renowned archive and reference collection as the director of the African American Resource Center. He currently hosts the weekly morning radio show On the Margin, which airs on WPFW FM 89.3. He can be seen hosting the UDC YouTube show, The Scholars, with E. Ethelbert Miller, where he recently interviewed Sidwell Friends alumnus David Nicholson about his well-received collection of short stories, Flying Home, Stories from the Secret City. The collected poems of E. Ethelbert Miller, published by Willow Books in 2016, assembles 40 years of his work. Published by Simon & Schuster earlier this year, his latest collection, If God Invented Baseball, has been widely acclaimed. It's a Simon & Schuster published it. It's not self-published, right? This is Ethelbert, this is Simon & Schuster publishing it. And we're very fortunate to have you with us here this evening. Ethelbert Miller is one of the most significant and influential poets of our time, said the legendary Gwendolyn Brooks. His poetry enters us and sings, opines Susanna Heschel, the Eli Black professor of Jewish studies at Dartmouth College. Like the biblical prophets, he inspires and challenges us and gives voice to our deepest longing, to live with greater intensity and passion and bring significance to our existence. He is one of the great voices of our day. What a gift it is to have his voice with us this evening. Friends, please welcome E. Ethelbert Miller.
Thank you for that kind introduction. It should come as no surprise that Lou Stovall, the painter, is also a poet. I like to view poets as people guided by their hearts, people who care, people who are lovers, and the sons and daughters of lovers. Stovall is the artist who finds no separation between the senses. The page is just as important as the canvas. Words can restore color to the world. Lou Stovall is a man whose life is an illustration of kindness and compassion. He is a metaphor for all that is good in the world. I believe I met Lou Stovall when we were both DC Arts Commissioners. We were honored together 2 years ago by the mayor of our city. I felt that moment was a moment of brotherhood. I felt our lives had perhaps found that bend in the river, a place where we could sit together, a place where we might look around and feel we were inside one of his paintings. Trees and flowers celebrating our friendship. The sky forever blue. And Lou, who always wears black, will remind me that the world is not dark or ugly, but that the blackness he wears is an extension of flesh and life. It is blackness which is at the center of beauty and breath. It is blackness from which we begin. It is blackness that holds the stars together, and now and then when one falls to earth, we call it Stovall. It is the first word of our prayers. I'm going to read from the book of Gilliam. And this poem, I think, is fitting because it's dedicated to his son here. Skywriters. Skywriters came our way one day and paused to write a lovely day. We all looked high and felt so good that passerby have understood. Just saying so appreciates what we so often simply take. I look up high again today. In fact, I saw it yesterday. Skywriters? No. But a long jet stream, the sight of which brought back the dream of times in youth when I could scream, skywriters. See, they're writing now and flying so to show us how. To pause and pass the time of day, to say to all, a lovely day. They're faster now, as how and why those jet stream guys can pass us by. No time to pause, I'll circle right. No comment from them must be right. I can't give up the memory, the gesture meant so much to me. All of my thoughts now go to you. I also give this kindness too, in hope that some good passerby should look to see you from the sky. They'll pause and leave you with some dreams. You look up too for passing streams and hold your youth to make you scream, skywriters. See, they're writing still and flying so your dreams to fill.
Thank you.
Those are some tough acts to follow. And before we begin, I just wanted to share with you just a little something I told the students today. Part of my responsibilities were to present Lou's exhibition to the entire student body. Before I asked him some questions, I wanted to just pay a bit more homage and also let the audience know what I was thinking about as I put this show together and was hanging it on the walls. In 1985, Stovall was one of our very first Rubenstein Guest Artists. And this autumn, 33 years later, Stovall is reprising his role as a visiting artist at Sidwell. Educated at the Rhode Island School of Design and Howard University, Stovall has been presented with an honorary doctorate from the Corcoran College of Art. He has been awarded multiple grants from the National Endowment for the Arts and has served for many years on the trustee committee for the National Gallery of Art. His work is represented in museum collections at the Smithsonian American Museum of Art, the Phillips Collection, and the National Gallery. In 1979, he was named Washingtonian of the Year, and he has continued to make a positive impact on this city for decades. In autumn 2017, Lou and I were presented with an award for distinction in artistic achievement from the Historical Society of Washington, D.C. Celebrating his impact on the local community, a triptych of Stovall's artwork was recently installed prominently in the lobby of the Cleveland Park Public Library. At the conclusion of the show, we will be hanging Stovall's prints in our own library, continuing his enduring artistic legacy at Sidwell Friends. You guys are lucky I'm skipping the rest of the essay. I am going to read the conclusion paragraph, but before I do that, I want to let all of you know I'm humbled to be here because there's many people in this room who are way more qualified to share these words than I. As I came in, I saw Percy Martin over there. I saw Ed Crow. I saw David Driscoll from the Driscoll Center at the University of Maryland. I saw Sandy Epps from the committee for the Porter Colloquium, which I was invited to this past school year as I was doing research for this exhibition. I see Larry Frazier, 2 rows back. And so there's a number of people in this room. Actually, I see some students in the back row over there too. So I just want to say that the collective energy and spirit of this, I really just feel like a vessel. So I thank all of you for being here. And now I'll read the concluding paragraph. Stovall has been collaborating with the landscape for his entire life. This exhibition allows the viewer into Stovall's field of vision. His Tondo compositions create a distance from the landscape, as if we are looking through a lens or through a window. Stovall's technical mastery of his personal mandala is obvious. We see only what he allows us to see. However, when he lets go of the circle, when he permits us to look into his landscape through a rectilinear composition, we experience more of the periphery of his imagination. His most abstract prints draw the viewer in so closely that we lose sight of the landscape entirely. The colors, the textures, the layers bring us to a picture plane that remains ineluctable. At his best, Stovall's abstractions are what happens when the landscape is felt by the viewer and remains yet unseen.
Thank you, Aaron.
So in an effort to prepare for this, I actually went over to Lee's house. I mean, he invited me, and I went over and had this big book and pile and stuff, and he's like, what's all that? And I'm trying to explain that I'm trying to prepare. And about halfway through, he said, why don't you just surprise me? So in essence, I think that he's really going to be the one surprising me, because I still haven't heard the answer to my questions. Something that, so first of all, I want to thank you for being here personally. And I'm hoping that you answer some of my questions today.
Well, before I do, I want to thank everyone who came. This is the Sidwell Friends School. You're all my friends and family, and have been. You're the reason that Washington is such a wonderful place. When asked, what is it about Washington? I said, and I still say, there's something about Washington that inspires friendship, inspires family, inspires kind of a congenial quality of life. And so I thank all of you for being here. And I also wanted to make sure that you enjoyed the hospitality of Sidwell Friends School, which has been such an important feature. And I say feature because when someone asks me, where should I send my little kid to school? I say, make it Sidwell. With any luck, I'll send my kid here also. And there he is. So thank you all again and again and again for being here. This is a wonderful place to be. Sidwell Friends is a great and thoroughly enjoyable place for kids to grow up. Okay.
As this show was coalescing, I was confronted by a lot of tondos, a lot of these circular compositions. And it took me some time to dig into them and start to understand your landscape. And then to come to terms with your relationship between landscape and abstraction. And so this show is not chronological. This show is a visual narrative from landscape to your more non-objective work or abstract work. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk to us about that long-term relationship with with those ideas?
Well, you mentioned the tondos. They're round. The world is round. Our life is round. It goes around and around. And there's a beginning. And that's a circular thing as far as I'm concerned. And I keep meeting people that I have met before. And I'm thrilled and happy to meet all of them. And especially to have you enjoy my art and what it is about making this art that is such a joyous thing.
The pieces in the show, in fact, that's one of them. I think the title is Passing.
Yeah.
And there's a piece just before that in the exhibition called Beginning 8. And those two pieces have this sensibility of some landscape features, but when I take a step back, they seem like completely expressionistic works. For instance, with Beginnings, if I put my hand over the mountain, I see this blue swirl. And I'm wondering, those pieces have become significant to me over the last few weeks. I'm wondering where they fit into, what you were doing over that period of time.
I couldn't begin to answer that because art, like my life, passes through a certain, certain feelings in my life. The landscapes are essentially just a kind of a reminder that I was here and that I am here. And it has to do with recognizing friendship. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't get to be more complicated than that. My hope is that everyone who has an experience with one of my prints will know that I cared enough to share a thought with you. And that's pretty much it.
Speaking of friendship, I was reading something you wrote in the Howard University catalog. And it said something like this: I am forever indebted to Jacob Lawrence for his personal history, which connected me to the history that formed my beginnings as an artist. I thought those were really strong words. And I was wondering if you could be talking about your friendship, your connection with him.
Well, my friendship with Jacob Lawrence was a thing of wonder. Jacob was, without a doubt, one of the finest people that I had ever met. And on one occasion, Jacob and I were driving. Well, neither one of us could drive. So we were riding through Georgetown on our way to a restaurant, which is one of our frequent destinations, a restaurant. And this man who had been driving down M Street, going west, suddenly jumps out of his car with traffic behind him, sprints across the street, and grabs Jacob's hand, because Jacob was walking at that particular time, because we had gotten to the restaurant where we were headed. And he said, "Mr. Lawrence, it's such a wonder knowing you, meeting you. You don't know me, but I love your work and I love what you've done." And I thought, wow, what a wonderful thing. This man has stopped traffic in order to give that message to Jacob. And of course, you want to know what Jacob answered. He said, "Thank you, that was so nice of you." And that was Jacob's answer to almost everything. When given a compliment, he would say, "Thank you for that. It was so nice of you." Now, I actually had an occasion where I was thanking Jacob for something. And I said, "Jacob, you don't have to worry about not being fully clothed. I'm going to help you put your shirt on. And don't worry about being naked, because I've seen you naked before." He says, "Yeah, but Lou, this time you might have." So that's the kind of friendship that Jacob and I had. He was never afraid that I wouldn't tell something, because I would.
So in your collaborations with Jacob Lawrence, I was struck by kind of a short tidbit, but it kind of just one of those things that stopped me in my tracks. You said that where a color led, we generally followed. I'm wondering what that means to you.
Every artist that I've ever known has been attracted by color or the lack of color. And where that color leads us, we follow. Even if it's just a low register of color. But color attracts and instructs and thrills us constantly. I actually wrote a statement about that, and I don't know, maybe you can find it, because I can't remember all of it. Because I tend to write essentially from my heart, and sometimes the words just get crazy. They just go. They go with my feelings. So
in the spirit of throwing some of your quotes back at you, I don't think this is what you were looking for, but it is your quote.
Go ahead.
What I say sometimes is that the great thing about quoting yourself is that you can't get it wrong. So these are your words. You seek subtlety in your own work, intelligent application of silkscreen printing. I'm chopping this up a little bit for brevity, but at the end of it, you say, the only limitation was my imagination.
Yeah.
Is that something that you could impart on in the workshop with your students over time? I mean, in terms of what's that? If you only have a 2-inch idea, make a 2-inch picture.
My professor from Howard University, James Porter, said, if you only have a 2-inch idea, do a 2-inch picture or painting, because there are so many, 6-foot, 8-foot, 12-foot, limitless paintings out there, when the statement that was needed was simple and direct, and that's what we should do. So any of my 2-inch pictures have in fact told the whole story, and I didn't have anything else to say beyond that, except to say, I can't wait to go on to the next one.
You talk about James Wells' patience. You talk about how he knew more about printmaking than anyone else.
Right.
That he might even know more than books. Coming from a poet, somebody who says somebody knows something more than books is high praise.
Yeah. Well, that was James L. Wells did in fact know more about printmaking than books, because he experimented, and he was the substance of my search where silkscreen printing was concerned, to do it as well as I could, to go beyond my limits, and to do it, make a picture that was beyond my imagination. Because once you get into it and you apply color to it, then you embellish that picture to a point that it's either luxurious or wonderful or magical, and that's enough.
So in your own pursuits, your own achievement of technical mastery, you had to invent things. You had to transcend patience at times. And slowing the drying time of your prints was a major turning point in your artistic process. In a sense, maybe it even became a collaboration with time. I mean, we talk about collaborating with color, composition, but time and patience also become media for printmaking. And I'm wondering about your invention or your application of castor oil to expand your time. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, and the technical mastery you achieved through those inventions.
Well, the use of castor oil started out as a joke in my studio. But the truth of it is that I was looking for a medium that I could add to my silkscreen ink that would slow it down so that it wouldn't dry as fast as it normally would, so that when I could slow it down, then I could work with it. And my great friend Sam Gilliam said once Lou added castor oil to his ink or to his stencil making, it was all over, because he could then do anything. And I did that. As a matter of fact, we were in my yard at one point trying to make a stencil for Sam that was not coming easily. And I said, well, Sam, just wait for a minute. So I ran inside, got the castor oil, added it to the ink in order to slow it down. And when we finished, and I said, well, Sam, what do you think? And he said, wow, that's what I was looking for. And I said, great. So I grabbed it and I immediately doused it with a solvent to erase it. And he said, well, wait a minute, we just killed ourselves getting to that. I said, yeah, but we can do it again. So,
oh, by the way, so we've gotten to the point in the slide lecture where you're seeing my students in the art studio working on Lou's compositions. So for those of you who are, in fact, there's some students in this room who were represented in these slides. So I'm looking forward to talking to them about that the next time we're in class. But in a sense, what you're seeing is another workshop, if you will. Occasionally, I'm getting distracted by some of them. Some of them are really, really beautiful. So speaking of Sam Gilliam, I have a quote from him, and he talks about your yard. To see how nature is distilled in the art of printmaking, come to the workshop, through the garden, behind the badminton court. I thought that was poetry, and true. I'd like to hear about your games of badminton. How'd those go? Were they collective, communal? What was the...
We used badminton to exercise after having printed several colors and somehow running around the badminton court. We would have had a tennis court if we had had more room, or more money. But the badminton court was a quick, fast game, and you don't have time to wait, before the birdie comes at you again. And so consequently, using the game of badminton, which was so quick, we could exercise our lungs. And that was the use of it. Now, beside the point that we made some pretty nice art before, after, and during, that was the icing on the cake, so to speak.
Another high praise from Sam came in the form of this quote. He said that the workshop, your studio, is a centering process between artists and within a community of friends.
Wow. I don't remember that statement, but I'm sure that's true.
In terms of the workshop downtown, or when you moved up to Cleveland Park, to Newark Street, how did you maintain that continuity of friendship? How did you maintain that continuity of community over time?
Well, from the very beginning, it was always about making art. And we never went beyond that, because we were always ultimately looking for the piece of art that would answer all of our questions, all of our desires, and our hopes and prayers. And to drop another name besides Sam Gilliam, because looking up there, seeing the children working on pieces of art, hopefully from your classes. I'm thinking of Gene Davis, who loved to come to my studio to see the kids working art. And he said there was no greater joy for him, besides making his own paintings, than to see all these young kids there working on art.
My last question related to a small move, related to moving from, DuPont up to Cleveland Park. But over the course of your life, you've gone from Athens, Georgia, to Springfield, Massachusetts, to Providence, Rhode Island.
Briefly,
then back to Springfield, and then to Washington, D.C. in 1962.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your sense of place, or your sense of place how that's affected your work over time.
Well, I never liked moving, so I was always relatively happy wherever I was. And leaving Springfield to pursue an art education in Rhode Island, and then leaving Rhode Island in order to further that career by coming back to Springfield, discovering that what was really necessary was taking time to work and help support my family, which satisfied my sense of, I've got to have something going for me besides this desire for art. So I need to do something else. And then I heard about Professor James Porter at Howard University, who was intellectually the answer to my wildest hopes and desires, which was not only a reasoning and a rationale for making art, but essentially to make that desire concrete and to, look at the art that your kids have done. It's amazing. I'm completely distracted by seeing what they've done, and I can't wait to get back to my own work. Yeah.
You call Dr. Porter a consummate gentleman and an intellectual guide.
Yeah,
I think. You said something like that. And I'm wondering if you could tell us more about his impact on you, and not just you, but the people around you.
Well, there's some people here in the audience who, excuse me for referring to you all as the audience, but among my friends who knew Professor Porter, and those of you who know me well enough to know that all the goodness that I have didn't come just from my hope, desire, and imagination, but it came from a sense of purpose, and that's what it's all about. And I wish that Professor Porter were here to see what some of your students have done. I'm sure that you inspire them, and inspiration is what students really need in order to carry on. My hope is that I will always produce a piece of art that will inspire someone to make another piece of art. That's what it's all about.
I think that was a mic drop.
Thank you all for coming and for being here. Your friendship and your ongoing love and support over the years has been everything that anyone could ever hope and ask for in a lifetime. And you've given that. So thank you.
So we have some time for some questions. So if anybody wants to just interact and share some things about the show or some of the knowledge or the mics that Lou just dropped, I think would be nice. We have a microphone over here.
Oh, okay. And I have a very practical question to ask you. I've been meaning to come by your house, but we've been traveling. But the question is, should I continue with this not understanding color theory, and should I take an academic course in this to improve my painting? Or should I just continue throwing paint at paper and
I would say begin with color that attracts you and that pleases you, and then go from that until you think you've done enough, stop, and start on another one.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
This probably sound a little bit like amateur hour. I do not have an artistic bone or gene in my body. I guess I really want to ask somebody this question who's an artist. Do you see the painting before you get to the canvas, or does it happen while you paint?
That's a tough question. I sort of do everything by making it up as I go along. And I think that if you've looked at enough art that pleases you, and and whatever you're working on, when it approaches that feeling that I'm pleased, then I say that you've done your job. Does that help? Bart?
Who thanks so much for coming tonight. It's been a great honor to have you here at Sidwell, and I'm astonished by the beauty of your works of art and the complexity of them that still portray themselves with this sense of simplicity. There's one work of art outside that I kept on asking a lot of different people about what their interpretation of was of this particular tree that had 4 layers of blue behind it. I'm not sure whether you know which one I'm talking about, but it was very realistic, but it had an edge of blue, like it was a shadow behind it. But you sounds like you don't remember that one out of the thousands of works. And I was sort of curious what your interpretation, because it was sort of surreal. But you'll see it outside. Maybe you could tell me later. But I just love your work.
Maybe you could ask me again once we're outside.
I'll do that.
Is that one?
No, it's when you go out, it's in the main area. It's on the left side. It's the far. That's it right there.
Oh, you missed it. Oh.
Just missed it.
Hi, this is more of a comment more than a question, but Aaron, you mentioned that you placed a piece of Lou's work in your library here, and there's also a place in the new Cleveland Park Library. And for printmakers who spent their life making works of art on paper, there's no better place to be than a library, like the bibliothèque. The great libraries of the world house the works of great printmakers. So I think you've started a very good tradition here, and I'd like to see more of that, because Lou's work, decades long, it needs to be studied. The castor oil, that's just one of many techniques that are so important for the history of silkscreen printmaking, and so a library is a great start.
Thank you.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we just have time for one more. This will be the last question.
Not a question, Lou. Just an observation about these marvelous photos that have been, slides that have been coming across the screen as you've been talking. You are clearly a wonderful teacher, and as exhibited by the art that your students have been turning out. I'd love to see an exhibition of their art. But thank you for that, and thank you for teaching this community for so many years.
Let's do one more. Yeah, please. Please.
Thank you, Pat.
So I plan to say something, but I don't think I can do better than that. It feels like it's right to end with a moment of silence, because that felt like a message that came from the heart, and it felt like a message that was part of a meeting for worship. So I'd like us to end the evening tonight with a sense of gratitude for the Rubensteins for providing this opportunity for our school. And for the remarkable friendship and wisdom and kindness and openness that you shared with us this evening. If you could just gather with a moment of gratitude for what we all experienced together this evening. Thank you, friends.